Jimmy Kimmel. Let's play the footage.
You know, before 2014, if you were born with congenital heart disease like my son was, there was a good chance you'd never be able to get health insurance because you had a pre-existing condition. You were born with a pre-existing condition. If your parents didn't have medical insurance, you might not live long enough to even get denied because of a pre-existing condition. If your baby is going to die, and it doesn't have to, it shouldn't matter how much money you make. I think that's something that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or something else, we all agree on that, right? I mean, we do. And I saw a lot of families there, and no parent should ever have to decide if they can afford to save their child's life. It just shouldn't happen.
Wow.
Not here. So, anyway.
So Jimmy Kimmel, on his show last night, let the world know that his son was born with a heart condition that required immediate surgery. And in telling that story, it was about a 10-minute story. In telling that story, first of all, before we go into the politics of it, I don't know how you could hear stories like this and not be moved to compassion, right? The reality of it is that these types of stories happen every single day. Families have to make these types of decisions, particularly before 2014, when the pre-existing condition component of Obamacare kicked in. Families had to make these types of decisions because they were not able to afford. To save their children who were born with pre-existing conditions. And I put emphasis here because it's impossible. You have to be less than a human being to be aware of these stories and actively work against people getting the insurance coverage that they need to take care of their families. And maybe it took somebody like Jimmy Kimmel to bring this to light on a national level, but these stories play out every single day in hospitals across the country. And I'm grateful for Jimmy Kimmel doing what he did, because that's every parent's nightmare. I mean, just the slightest concern from your wife's OBGYN, your wife's doctor, or the specialist that was called, just the slightest look of concern causes parents' hearts to drop. And to see in Jimmy Kimmel's eyes that initial concern actually turned out to be a major issue that required open heart surgery on his newborn. How can you be a human being and see this and not be drawn to compassion to do the right thing? To do the right thing. All right, we'll come back to that portion in a second. So Jimmy Kimmel's let the world know that his son was born with a heart condition that required open heart surgery, and then he began to use it to speak on the reality that we need a system that does not allow or does not make parents, does not force them to make a decision or force them into the position where they're not able to take care of it. They can't save their children because they don't have money. And this is the system that Republicans, I mean, I genuinely hate that this conversation automatically transitions to politics. But it is a political football being used by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And it's their attempt to remove things like just to repeal Obamacare altogether, with no regard to the people like Jimmy Kimmel. Well, Jimmy Kimmel might have been okay, right? Because he has the money to do what he has to do. But think about the millions of people who don't have any money in their bank whatsoever. Not a dime. And the Republicans' repeal of Obamacare, while Obamacare is not the perfect solution, Obamacare does not fix all of the problems. Obamacare has its own problems, but to repeal it without something better to replace it leaves Americans vulnerable. Thousands of families who face the same exact situation that Jimmy Kimmel's family faced. And so as much as I hate the fact that a compassionate story like this automatically transitions into political commentary. The reality of it is that Republicans have made this political. It is political. It's absolutely about the distribution of our resources and the concern that we have for the least of those amongst us. And so here we are. And you ask yourself the question of how can you see this and not be moved to compassion? And you think for a second, there's no way in the world that somebody could see this and not have a heart and to take a step back and consider. But of course, the Republican Party, conservatives did not disappoint. Here's a tweet from Joe Walsh at Joe Walsh Freedom on Twitter. He says, sorry, Jimmy Kimmel, your sad story doesn't obligate me or anybody else to pay somebody else's health care. Let's switch back off real quick. So Joe Walsh, I won't use any profanity because I'm trying not to, just because of, but go fuck yourself. That's just on the house. Okay, no, you don't even know how insurance works. You don't care how insurance works. You don't care about how illogical your argument is. All you care is about using this as an opportunity to build your platform with people who actually get off on the same sadistic styled political worldview as you. That's all this is. You don't even care that what you said really undermines your knowledge or exposes the lack of knowledge that you have with regard to insurance, because that's exactly how insurance works, you big idiot. So never mind the lack of compassion, never mind the idiocy. It's just that never mind the lack of compassion. You're an idiot on top of having no compassion. But for every time someone steps out, what's the saying? I know the saying. I just wanted to take a little moment to pause to set it up. Fools jump up to get smacked down. This next tweet from an actress really shows how beautifully Joe Walsh was handled by the universe. Put it up on the screen for me, by Alyssa Milano. She says, don't you owe $117,437 in child support to your ex-wife and 3 children, Joe Walsh? And it's even better when you get owned inside of your own thread. This is a response from David Roth. He said, the laws of your state and this nation obligate you to pay your child support. Chris Pedersen said, Chris Pedersen said, Joe, you should pay your child support. So what Joe Walsh did this for a measly 1,000 likes, easily, he has gotten owned in the most spectacular way. And does it matter? Probably not in the grand scheme of things, but you can afford me a few moments to be petty. Joe Walsh, go to hell. You guys have a good night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.